Am I right in thinking that you were the first ever UK fan channel?
Yeah, we were the first.
So you were about before AFTV.
The thing I found hard was they became the poster child for an industry that I'd created. The negativity was selling, and I hated that.
And of course, you went through a period where you worked at Ball Street.
They bought Redmen TV.
Why do you think that didn't work?
I wasn't being consulted on the content that Ball Street was getting made.
So did you have to buy the channel back then?
That was the single most stressful experience of my life.
Was it?
I had a panic attack. I couldn't breathe. And then the next day, we just got a phone call and they said, okay, well, how does this deal work for you?
Genuinely incredible stuff.
Was that one of the most important phone calls you've ever had in your life?
Yeah, 100%.
Let's talk about some of the big people you've had on your channel.
Yeah, Luis Suarez.
Now, you described this interview to me as a car crash.
That one bombed.
I want to ask you about Klopp as well.
He pops his head back out the door and just goes, I watch you, And I literally go, no. And then he just comes over and stands with us. I was like, oh, can I get you a drink?
This is you having a beer with Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah.
What is he like with the drinking down on a night out?
He was telling us about how...
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Inside the Industry Unfiltered with myself, Adam Smith, on the podcast today. A man who's travelled all the way down from Liverpool to be here. What a lovely man he is. He's also the founder of the Redmen TV, one of the first and quickest growing fan channels there is. It is, of course, Paul Machin. Paul, firstly, thank you very much for coming all the way down here to see little old me.
No, an absolute pleasure. I don't get to see you often enough. So this was a nice opportunity outside of the Sky environment for us to hang out like.
That's a lovely answer. It's a good start to pod. There's so much to get into with you. Let's start about growing up and sort of where your love for football and Liverpool began. Was it always from a very young age?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because I think everyone kind of has a similar experience with football, certainly in England and certainly in Liverpool, where your dad supports a team, your granddad supports a team, and it's just sort of part of your life. You never really question it. It's just football's just such an important part. My dad would go to the game every weekend. At the end of the season, he'd go to the cup final. Well, that's how it felt, in the 80s, in the late 80s, certainly. It wasn't far off the truth at that point. And so, you kind of grew up to it. Like, my cousin was a few years older than me, and he was really, really into football. And I always liked playing the game. I never really got into like the real watching of it and the study of it. It was probably really in the as we got into probably heading towards sort of 10, 11, 12, going into senior school, where I became quite obsessive with it as you were around that age.
Did you play? Were you a good player?
I was okay.
I got a bit.
I was a goalie, so I was okay. I mean, I was described by Liverpool's former goalkeeper coach John Achterberg as having the frame for it. When there's a model that they used to follow, and I would have fit within that, just with size, but not with skill.
The agility.
Unfortunately, yeah, definitely.
I think it's a compliment. First Liverpool game then. So what sort of age were you when you went to Liverpool for the first time?
I think I was 6 or 7 when I first started going. I can never remember the exact ones, because there was a couple of ones where I'd have probably been too young to really take it in. But the one I do remember is the one I count was 1990. It was actually the game Liverpool lifted the league title at Anfield.
That was one of the first games you went to?
Yeah, I had no idea of like what that would mean, and I certainly had no idea I'd have to wait another 30 years to see them do it again. But that was it.
Wow, I like that. And in terms of fast forwarding a bit, because your journey's quite mad in terms of how and when you started the Redmen TV, but prior to that, what were you sort of studying through school and through university? Was it always like you wanted to work in TV, in football, in YouTube? What was the sort of goal for you when you started to appreciate what you wanted to do in life?
Yeah, I wanted to be like a writer-director, to be honest.
From an early age?
Yeah, well, certainly from senior school age, getting into movies and TV and comic books as well was a huge part of my upbringing. So I just wanted to write stories and do that kind of thing. And then I had a close friend, Aubrey, who wants to be a director as well. So we used to bounce off each other and share ideas and swap comics and all that kind of stuff. And then I did media at uni in Sheffield, mainly because I didn't get the A-levels because I messed around too much. Age sort of 16 to 18. I had more fun than I probably should have done.
Party boy.
Yeah. So, I got, rather than doing film studies, which I wanted, I did media, but that was a bit broader. And then, just kind of went from there really. So it was always just filming stuff and writing ideas down, and then going from that phase of taking things from scribbles in notebooks and trying to make them real. Yeah.
So once you graduated, you're at Sheffield, you said. Yeah. What jobs were you doing? Was it a case of I want to get straight into media then, or were you doing odd jobs to get by at that stage?
So I was managing. I didn't have a great time with a degree because that doesn't get better. You don't become more sensible going to university.
No, that's definitely true.
So I certainly didn't. So I ended up working and managing in pubs, and I spent a year after graduating just kind of kicking around thinking, I got my degree, but only just, and I was a bit like, well, I can't really go back home. I don't feel like a triumphant person returning, so I was going to get me like the qualifications to be a pub manager or whatever, because I was quite enjoying it, and I enjoyed like.
So you're working in bars at the time,
so I just enjoyed talking to people, and that was part of it. Like, I mean, so I really enjoyed that as a sort of lifestyle as well. It was a bit, you know, it allowed you the money and the time to kind of live a life that you wanted to. And then around that time, though, it was 2004, 2005. And Liverpool started to have this really good run in the Champions League. And I'd kind of been watching that season from afar. And then basically it was one of those like epiphany moments where it was between the legs. We played Leverkusen. I think it might be in the round of 16.
That was the time when you and Chelsea were playing each other a lot in cup finals, Champions League, wasn't it? I remember that. Yeah.
And I moved back. We won the first leg, I think it was like 3-0, 3-1. And I remember just sitting in my mate's house going, I'm kind of done here. I think I want to move back. So I did, and that obviously it led to watching the game in Liverpool as opposed to in Istanbul at the time. But I just wanted to direct stuff. I was like, well, I'm going to get a loan, I'm going to buy a camera, and I'm going to start filming things. But I'd so badly ruined my credit record from the life that I'd led in that time that I couldn't do that. So I think I got stupidly had a choice for my 21st birthday of like, do you want a camera or do you want a drum kit? And I chose drum kit for reasons that, like, you know, like I would never claim to be a drummer in any way, shape or form, but I made that decision based on a random night where I'd had to go and thought it was good fun. So it took me another year or so before I could finally afford the camera, and then just went from there, filming little shorts and music videos and stuff like that. So
this is what I'm fascinated by. How did the idea of the Redmen TV come about? And was it a case of you were doing a bit of filming? Because when we had Robbie on here, and I think there's a lot of parallels between AFTV and the Redmen TV. He just said he wanted to go, and he's a massive Arsenal fan, as you know, wanted to go, started filming fans and loved it, and it had good feedback in it. But he was doing that whilst he was doing a job. So were you just talking about Liverpool whilst you were doing other jobs and bar work, or did you literally one day say, I want to jack in the bar work and start this channel?
No, it was a process. So it was literally, I was working. I'd lost a job, and I was kicking around unemployed. And then Chris, who's my best friend, business partner, Chris Page, gave me a job at a restaurant that he was working in, just to help me keep me afloat. Well, like, because it was just so when you've lost a job, you've been dismissed from a job, and it was an unfair dismissal as it goes. But you know, it was one of those there. You're then trying to explain to people, well, why are you looking for a job? Well, I was dismissed from my last job. Oh, well, great. You're not, particularly when that, like, somewhat like trying to get jobs at Sports Direct and jobs at like off licenses and, you know, and this kind of stuff. And it was just,
how tough was that then? Because that's not, I imagine they're not jobs, having been to university, that would be a career progression. They were, at the time, is it fair to say, just jobs to get you by?
God, yeah, 100%. Yeah, wow. that was. I was lucky enough. You know, my mum and dad were good enough to were putting me up. You know, but they, you know, once I got a job, like once I'd had my previous job, I was paying my way. You know, it was one of those things, and then I couldn't, and that wasn't fair on them. And I was living. I didn't want to live that life. You know, I'd gone from independence to having no independence, where you can't afford. I mean, you can't afford to buy a packet of cigarettes and a light. You can't afford to go for a pint. You can't afford to socialise. Therefore, you can't afford to go out and meet someone and so on and so forth.
And what age would you have been here roughly?
So this was 24, I think.
Okay, so mid-20s,
No, I am lucky that there was a period just after I'd lost that job where I met this is 2007. I met my partner now, who's gone on to be my wife and mother of my children and what have you, who kind of helped me through as well. But it was just embarrassing ultimately. So anyway, I got this job working with Chris, and it was just, I need to do something to get something off the ground. I can't keep doing this. So there was like this thing of like, there was probably 4 or 5 ideas. Now, I tried to get scripts funded for years, entering like script writing competitions and what have you. Yeah.
And for the viewers that don't know anything about that, I've actually been on script writing courses through my days at Sky, but only 1 or 2. How does that actually work in practice, script writing?
Effectively, this was like write a short script for something. There'd be a particular competition. You put loads of time and effort into it, and you send it off, and more often than not, it doesn't even get read, and you get nothing back. And the guy I had mentioned at school, who was a director, he'd had a couple of shorts funded, so that I knew it was possible. But I came to realise that there was no way. I just didn't want to sit and endlessly send scripts off and cross my fingers that someone would see something. I needed to make something happen myself. So I mentioned I was doing little music videos for bands. So and then I started to get paid a little bit for a few, like, and earn a little bit of money, and then doing videos for like the boss, the owner of the restaurant we worked in. I did like his kid's birthday party, just stupid things. But it was making me more money than it was standing behind the bar.
And it gains you experience. I think that's a really important point to make, that everything like that is actually experiencing ultimately what you went on to become.
Absolutely. So it was just about making things a reality and then getting them out, trying to get them out into the world. And, you know, I shot a pilot for like a restaurant-based comedy kind of thing, and that was good fun, but it was never of the quality required. And Redmen was just the next in line, really. It was just that next idea. And it's because, you know, you mentioned it before, like, you know, the Sky stuff, and Soccer AM was just such a huge inspiration growing up.
Wow. Who's your favourite character? But
to be honest, I always just liked, you know, Lovejoy and Chamberlain. You know, the idea that you could go out there and actually talk about football but have fun with it. And similarly, it was, you know, Baddiel and Skinner doing fantasy football. That was Friday night staple television for me growing up. And again, it just showed you. And, you know, I was so, Wayne's World was such a big thing in the 90s, and that kind of, that had that vibe, and fantasy football did it. And I know it was a set, but it was like, God, you could literally just put some cameras in a living room if you wanted to and film. And so that was kind of where that came from.
The inspirations for you, those things.
Because me and my mates were going to, around that time, I ended up moving in with my girlfriend. And midweeks, we were going down to the pub and watching Liverpool in the Champions League. Yeah. And we'd sit and chat. And at the end of the game, we'd sit and chat a bit more. And I know everyone's done this at one point in their life. And I go, this is better than what I'm watching on telly. No one's having these discussions.
Yeah, interesting.
And, you know, most people go, cool, well, I'll see you next week. Yeah. But I was like, can I just put a camera on this? And is this something if I do it, really? And that's kind of how it was born.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you know what's mad about what you said there about, you said Soccer M was one of your inspirations, and obviously I was lucky enough to work on the show for many years. And what was amazing about that is the amount of people that would say, it had this huge cult following from football fans, but the amount of people that would say, oh, my partner watches it, doesn't like football at all, but loves watching it. I thought that was such a hidden gem as an appeal to a show, that it was appealing to your cult football fans. I'd go to Tottenham after the show and people would chat about Third Eyes they'd seen, or a Showboat, or a sketch that I'd done as Frankie Fryer, or Tubes had interviewed someone or whatever. But then you'd get people go, oh, I don't like football, I'm here... not at the football, that's a bad example, but, you know, on a train, someone go, I watch the show, I don't like football, but I love all the comedy aspects. And I thought that was what was really clever about the brand, is that it culminated comedy and football. And that was a big part of what you did earlier on. I think a lot of people might forget some of the earlier stuff, but you showed me some of it, and it was very sketch heavy, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely, because that was a writing perspective for me. You know, so I used to work with, this was the early stages of Darren Farley's career was taking off. He's a famous football impressionist now.
We've worked with him before.
Absolute legend. And his career was just starting to take off.
I just thought it was Michael Owen just there.
Yeah, honestly, mate. And so we had this green screen in the back room of our house, and I'd go and pick Darren up from his. And because I didn't drive at the time, so I'd have to drive to Norris Green in Liverpool, which is not somewhere anyone really wants to be driving over night time. Pick him up and come back and bring him to ours, and I'd have these sketches written, and I'd be like, so we do like a Rafa Benitez sketch, and he had a Kite sketch, and a few other bits and pieces, and that was like a regular part of it. And then we just do it because, of course, football was different. When, you know, even the mid to late 2000s, there were so many characters still in the game that, and you had an antipathy towards players of other teams, so you could do a Gary Neville sketch about him having a terrible goatee, you know, and you could do one, you know, people used to say like Fat Frank Lampard, that was the joke. So I mean, God, if you look at him, you know, he was Mr. Six Pack in reality.
He was never fat, was he?
God, no.
Really
but it was a joke that resonated with Liverpool fans. Yeah. So you could play on that as that's sketch worthy material. So you could be those things. And then when Torres left Liverpool, then he became a ripe target because he'd gone to Chelsea. So, you know, he became target for parody and stuff. And I just, so we were doing like, here's what happened on the previous game in one bit, but then other bits we'd just be, again, just messing around. It was great fun.
Do you know what? You sound like you're similar to me. We're obviously both massive football fans, been season ticket holders for various clubs, but I actually love the comedy aspect and the entertainment. So I think back to when I go home now, I love watching a comedy box set. And I actually, because we both work in football, we probably forget that we've still got a big passion for comedy and entertainment as well.
Well, we started out, so when we started the YouTube channel, Liverpool were going under ownership protests at the time. Right. So they were owned by Tom Hicks and George Gillette.
Yeah, remember it.
There were mass protests trying to get them out of the club. And so you had Spirit of Shankly were organising protests. You had an organisation called Help Save LFC who made this protest shirt up, and they were going on the ground with black banners and all kinds of stuff. And we kind of came along, and I was like, well, we're not, what can we do here? We can go and cover stuff. So we did. We were the only outlet covering these events. Like the BBC weren't covering it, because it was such a niche thing. but also we want to get help to get these guys. So we started making parody sketches of the owners.
Right, yeah.
And again, it was, some of them were a little close to the bone, you know, in hindsight. But again, it was just, that was what we could do. It was a bit daft, it was a bit stupid, but also, yeah, it was great fun, and you felt powerful for doing it.
I want to go back to something quite interesting you said about you're in the pub, because we hear this so many times. I had an idea with your friends, and ultimately that has become your career. How much of a risk factor was it to decide to launch the Redmen TV when, at the time, you said you just bought a camera, you didn't have much experience there, or was there less of a risk because you weren't in a full-time profession that you were? Because a lot of people that have sat in that chair have quit really high-profile jobs to follow their passion. They say that's a difficult decision. Was it an easy decision for you because you were in a sort of state of limbo with your career? Is that fair to say?
It honestly wasn't a decision. It was what had to happen.
Right.
So I'd almost kept myself as close to financial destitution as I'd afford, because I'd seen from doing the music videos. I remember loads of guys in great bands, and then I remember one in particular I was doing all the music videos for, and he got he had a good job at the bank, and then he got up and up and up and up, and then he had his own flat and his own car. And when everyone else was still living with the mum and dads, he was living this like adult lifestyle on money that none of us could dream of. Well, he's not going to jump in a van and go traveling around the country for no money and play pubs and clubs to be a lead singer of a band. And I was always wary of that's a trap you can fall into. So I had that in one eye. But yeah, it was just something we kind of did. And again, I was lucky my partner was a teacher at the time, and she kind of helped. She understood what I was trying to do and helped to keep us going through that sort of period. So there was definitely a risk, but it's weird. It's just when you feel like you're so passionate for something, yeah, it's a risk. And there were plenty of like teary nights when it wasn't going that way. Yeah, because again, it's pressure, and she's got pressure on her. Yeah. Her family are going like they can't see it. Her family are like a right-leaning small village mentality from the middle of England, who didn't like the idea of a seemingly part-time employed Scouser, you know, like taking advantage of their daughter or whatever, which obviously, you know, didn't know me very well at the time. And that turned, by the way, when I got interviewed by Radio 4 one day, and my father-in-law heard it, and all of a sudden he was very...
he's working,
yeah, he was very... I was like, oh, okay, sound.
I was going to ask that about how family reacted, because also the stage that you were doing, you weren't... I feel like if you start YouTube now, this might be a false perspective, but everyone is... The mainstream, a lot more people are aware of what being a YouTuber is, that it is a profession that you can go through. Whereas then... to be fair to your family, there probably wasn't a blueprint of people that had done that. No. So you can sort of understand the cautiousness of your wife now, or your girlfriend, saying, well, is this going to work? Because you do have bills to pay, effectively. 100%,
yeah. And that's the thing where you've kind of got to, if you believe in what you're doing and you know it's good, it's look... The problem is we all suffer from imposter syndrome a variety of times, so it can be difficult to know. We were all, I mean, this is the X Factor, Britain's Got Talent era, where you're watching these people who think they're absolute stars, and they open their mouths and they're not, and you're like, how? But they clearly believe it, and someone's led them to it, and no one's told them they're not. So you're like, oh God, in your darkest moments, you're like, oh God, is that me? Is this actually just utterly terrible? But I just believed in it, so I did have to fend it off. And it's almost, I often describe it as a bit like, sometimes you've got to carve your life, and often sometimes it's smooth and it's malleable, it's Play-Doh. Other times it's out of granite, you know, when you've really got to dig in and trust that it's going to turn into something at the end, because it never looks right until you're well into it. My mum and dad were always dead supportive, because my dad was a social worker, and my mum was a teacher, and all they said to me was, don't follow in our footsteps.
Really? Why did they say that?
Because they're just, you know, they are not... They're rewarding professions on the face of them, but they're challenging professions. They're not professions that bring in particular money, success, or kudos, or whatever. And they ended up really struggling financially because of the sort of the pressures and whatever that were put upon them. So they just said, don't be a teacher, don't be a social worker, go and be whatever it is you want to be. So they still had the pressure. I remember my dad saying, if you're not on it by 24, 25, then you need to give up and go and find a proper job. Really? And I was like, well, I needed to get something, and that was around the time where I started to make things. Really.
So you started making content, and how early did you realise this was it? Did you have a light bulb moment? Was there one video that banged where you thought you could do this? You said you had nights you were crying, or sleepless nights. Yeah. So where was the moment when you thought, do you know what, this is going to be my future, and we can make something of this?
I'd love to say it, because there's so many great moments that followed and great times I was put in front of really interesting people. But there's probably two. There's one really, and I'd done a video and it was taking the mick out of an Everton away kit. They had this really garish, like bright fluorescent pink away kit, and I just done a daft sketch about it. And it got posted on like an Everton forum, and so the comments just went. And then every video that we'd released just had these horrendous, like abusive comments on. I was like, oh God. So I'd finally been opened up beyond our the little bubble. And bear in mind that we were getting 200, 300 views a video at this point at most, maybe 500 at the maximum. And then all of a sudden they were awash with these negative comments. And I was going, oh God, well, maybe I should pack it all in. And I went to work. And by the time I got home from work, there was a load of people who were actually become fans were defending us in the comments. And going, oh no, shut up, they're doing, and like just go into bat for us. And I'm thinking, oh wow, okay.
You've got a community.
People like it, So, and that was probably the one where it was just the first time somebody we had an audience. They were real people who were prepared to, even if it was only write a sentence out, that meant the absolute world at the time when everything else felt like it was on top.
I know what you mean like that, because it feels like you've got a cult following there or community that is backing you. The one thing I wanted to speak to you about is, well, many things I want to speak to you about, but the one thing I think is really interesting is, am I right in thinking that you were the first ever UK fan channel? So you were about before AFTV, before any of the Man United fan channels, Tottenham, Chelsea. The Redmen TV was the first. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were the first. The only thing that was happening around that time, and it maybe a little bit slightly after us or fraction after us or in around that time, was still kids in bedrooms with webcams on the desk pointed up at their chins. You know what I mean? Like there was no structure to it. There was no sense of production to anything whatsoever. And it's funny that it's kind of come full circle now. It's loads of kids in bedrooms with webcams again, but much better production. And the cameras are actually at head height, which is great.
I know what you mean, not looking down.
Yeah. Because that's where everyone used to keep the webcam, by the way. They used to keep it on the desk. It used to be a little ball thing and it was on the desk. But that was, so we were the first because we pitched it to Liverpool's in-house club channel initially because I just wanted it to be on telly because I thought Soccer AM, Sky have got Soccer AM, so why don't Liverpool have their own version of it? So we tried that. It was a very long story. It's a story in and of itself, really. But eventually they kind of went a bit cold and I sat on it and then needed a platform, took it to another TV channel on Sky. I think it was called like Showcase TV or Information TV where you could pay to be on there, and we just couldn't get sponsorship to finance it basically. So, and then it was one of them. I sat around, and YouTube at the time was what TikTok is now, where it's a bunch of like dog videos and like babies biting other babies.
Charlie bit my finger and stuff like that. Wasn't it?
Exactly. It wasn't like I didn't realise there were channels. Yeah. So when I stumbled upon that was like, oh, this might be.
So you were very much ahead of the curve then, in that sense.
There's obviously you speak to like. Cal Freese and a couple of the lads around that time, around 2010 is when a lot of them kind of seemed to discover that YouTube was a thing. They're obviously a bit younger than I am, but that was it. And then I described it at the time as like we'd broken into this like function room and there was this buffet laid out, the greatest spread you'd ever seen, dance floor there, the decks are all there. It's going to be the biggest party ever, but no one's onto it yet, and we're the only ones in the room. And I go, God, this is going to be great. There's no, and I'm like, we could do this for every club could do this. Why? And I was at that point then I was like, I think we've got something. I think we're onto it. And yet it was just the kind of, we'll just keep going until other people
clock onto it.
Do this.
It's fascinating that you looked at that, and Spencer said something very similar actually about how he started because he wanted a career in television, but then realised that actually having his own ownership and his own channel would help build his brand better than any other channel potentially could. And that you've said you've got this great product, but I've got to pitch it to a TV program because that's all we knew as content back then. Whereas actually it's probably worked out really well that you didn't have a TV channel backing you in a way, because it's meant that you could grow. And don't get me wrong, I work in TV. There's phenomenal benefits to that and platforms that someone like Sky have. But if you can't get a big company to back it, there's no bad thing to having ownership yourself, because effectively now you're at a stage where you're in control of your own brand effectively.
Yeah, 100%. And it can put a cap on what you're doing in some instances. But at the time, it wasn't really a choice. You know, I remember a mate saying to me, like, he was a guitarist. Yeah. And, you know, he said, well, the beauty about being a guitarist is you can go outside and play guitar. And you've got control over your future. You can walk up to someone and play it. Whereas if you're just a writer and you're waiting and you're hoping other people are going to benefit, you might never leave your room. You know what I mean? So actually, having the agency and having a platform and just going, just, you know what, who cares? And actually being turned down put a bit of fire in the belly as well to almost say like, you know, like, Quan, I'm going to prove to you that this was the biggest mistake of your lives, turning this down. And I wouldn't say that, you know, people think that half of them, most of them don't even work there anymore now. But you know, I like that idea that it's gotten so big now that there's probably people there who just think, oh, we probably should have done that. If nothing else, we'd have been less of a threat.
And the great thing about that story is, the next Christmas you ask for a guitar and not a camera because you've had the drum kit. Ties it on perfectly. I want to talk about some of the comparisons between the Redmen TV and AFTV, because do you think there's a perception? Do people think that AFTV were the first?
Yeah.
Does that happen? People say that to you?
Yeah, well, that happened. Robbie and I were doing a talk at because
your mates are Robbie, aren't you?
Yeah,
as a mine
Robbie,
stuff.
Been mates for years. But yeah, we were doing a talk at BBC early on in the year, and the question was posed about them being the first. And it was funny, and it did make me wonder whether Robbie's been asked that and going, yeah. When I was sat next to him, and I think it was a bit like actually it was these that were these were first. So yeah, it's really interesting because obviously they crossed over in a big way. Like it really broke into the sort of public conscious in a way that we've never really done.
Yeah.
And for better or for worse, really, because I think that I did find that hard. From a professional, I think a professional jealousy.
Did you? So you found it hard, the success that AFTV had comparative to the Redmen TV in the early years? Yeah,
for a couple of reasons. Because, as I say, Redmen was only meant to be, it was one of 5 or more ideas. It's not what I planned to do forever. So actually, what I really would have liked it to go is go really big in a short space of time, and then I could have moved on to something else. And you know, but actually, it's had to come up. We've come up the really long and the really sort of hard, organic way. And look, it's been. I'm not going to complain. I wouldn't do it any other way ultimately. But so there is a little bit of, and when I see other people come on after the fact, the little part of you goes, oh. But at the same time, so much of it came from decisions that we made. And the thing I found hard was they became the poster child for an industry that I'd created.
Right.
And it was getting so much negativity, and it made us, it actually made my job harder. How negatively they were being perceived for what they were doing. And because that was the stigma. The stigma is fans are just lunatics who rant and rave outside football grounds and say stuff for clicks and engagement, and you know they're only there when times are hard. And Liverpool as a city, we just don't like to be embarrassed, and we just don't like to feel that people are laughing at us. You know, laugh with us. City of comedians and storytellers and romantics, but not laugh at us. That's what you've got to be careful with. And I think a lot of people saw what we were doing and thought, well, there's fans film and stuff. It must be the same as this Arsenal fan TV thing. And even we had a because we used to interview people outside the ground as well. Again, it's one of those things. It's a bit like The Simpsons. Is that we probably did it first. We had a go at it. There's things we tried and moved on from. The interviewing fans thing, they made it a big thing, and it made it part of the culture. And that certainly encouraged us to go back to it. And we had some fantastic stuff that came out of it in a really positive sense. But you found worlds where kids were coming up to you and they were saying stuff that you could tell they just don't believe.
Really? So do you think they were watching AFTV, Liverpool fans were watching Arsenal fans on AFTV, seeing how stratospheric that was going, sometimes in a negative way, and trying to replicate that on your channel?
100%.
Wow.
And they were nice kids, and it was never like grown-ups. You know, it was young lads who were looking at it going, I think this might be this might be my ticket to fame and success or whatever. And there weren't loads, because this is the thing, we filmed people, and that was the telling difference, and why I hated the comparison, because Liverpool fans didn't really react like that. We were there after every game. I remember people saying to me, "You should get people like that," and I'm like, They don't. Maybe if they exist, they don't come and talk to us. They don't. You know, it's not. People just get on. When Liverpool are losing, people leave 5 minutes early and go home to beat the traffic.
Right.
Whereas there was a different culture around that. I think around the Emirates, people kind of hang around a bit more.
Yeah.
Don't want to go to the tube station because you'll be stood there for an hour trying to get away. So you'll hang around, captive audience, and then it's something to do, I guess. But yeah, it was. That was really tough, because I felt that I just think football's really fun. I love football.
Yeah.
I enjoy football. It's a pastime. And what I hated about the mainstream was how miserable all the coverage is. It's pundits sitting there telling you what someone did wrong constantly, who's to blame, who's the most embarrassing thing, and it's only gotten worse. And I thought that culture around fan TV had kind of created another element of that, of like the negativity was selling, and I hated that. I just wanted to celebrate how much I loved my football club.
Interesting.
And there wasn't enough of that going on. And it's, look, when your football team's crap, it's hard to do, but I saw that as a challenge.
Yeah.
You know, so people sometimes think we're like happy, clappy idiots who only see the positive. It's not. It's just that life goes on. Life's too
So it
short.
sounds like there's a lot of differences in terms of the content and the strategy, I think, between the Redmen TV and Arsenal Fan TV. And to be honest, Robbie's had amazing success. He's someone I think of very highly. He's been on here, and his journey actually chatting about it was fascinating. But do you think, is it fair to say then that you think a big part of their growth has been down to the fact that it started when Arsenal were in a place of negativity? Do you think that helped him grow the channel, that fans of rival teams, Tottenham, Chelsea, were sharing the content as well as Arsenal fans? Do you think that helped them get where they were?
Listen, I'd be careful how I say it, because I think that people accuse them of doing that deliberately, and I don't think that's true.
No.
You know, they were there, and people came and spoke to them and said what they wanted to say.
Yeah.
Whereas we put a filter in place very early on, and we've made mistakes. Everyone's made mistakes. There's stuff that's gone out that I've regretted or look back on and gone, oh God, that didn't fit with what we were trying. But I remember speaking to Neil Smythe, who was running Full-Time Devils at the time.
He used to be my boss on Soccer M.
Of the Soccer M alum, of course.
Yeah.
And we were having meetings, and he was talking about what happens, what content goes out. And he was saying, well, when we lose, this goes out. And I was like, when we lose, we don't put that out. So like,
right.
So I still do it to this day. You know, I do match vlogs. Liverpool lose, it doesn't go out. The footage will go in a folder.
Why does it not go out of
because
interest?
it's not for Liverpool fans.
Right.
That's for fans of other teams. And that was the difference, is that, and this is, you know, maybe it would have been a shortcut to the top, I don't know, but I think there are some people more comfortable with the showing the negative side and the down times and all that. And look, it can be helpful to Liverpool fans. We've always said we'll be there. You know, we'll talk about it. You know, if you're having a tough time with Liverpool, at times we call ourselves like a counselling session. You know, whether it's going well and you're stressed out and how are we going to cope with this, or it's really bad. You know, we're going to be here every week. We'll do our regular shows, but those moments, no other fan of another team is going to come and listen to our podcast really on a Monday or whatever. But the post-match, someone just gone, oh my God, or you might be filming yourself and the goal goes in. The amount of kids I see you put videos out to themselves when their teams just conceded this heartbreaking goal.
I know
Get
what
in
you
the bin. It's not for
you.
No. And I'm sure, I think the only, maybe one or two vlogs I've ever put out when we've lost. Wow. I think one of them was, we lost to Red Star Belgrade in the Champions League, and it was just such a phenomenal atmosphere,
in terms of the content that people can consume. Yeah,
that I was like, this is just such a unique experience, historic football team and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we always tried our best, because Chris and I always said, you know, we've got to walk down the street in Liverpool. Yeah. So if you know, and Liverpool's not a city, it's a city that will tell you if it doesn't like what you're doing. So you know, I didn't want embarrassment. I didn't want my kids to be embarrassed. And I don't want people to laugh at Liverpool fans. You know, because it's a personal thing that we all know. We all felt it. Yeah. So that was a bit of a difference, and a lot of people have profited, I think, on, because that viral quality of someone losing their head. You know, it's definitely got a value. Yeah. But that'll go out, but only if then we score the winning goal.
Right, got you. That's an intriguing insight, actually, in a huge difference between the Redmen TV and Arsenal Fan TV. And to be honest, I think both should be commended. I don't think there's a right or wrong way of doing it. There's various content strategies that can be had, but it's interesting that you wouldn't put a vlog out of your team losing or real negativity. Say you lost a Merseyside derby or something like that, whereas on Arsenal Fan TV that they put everything out. And Robbie, if he was Saturday, would say, to be fair, we do put out the positivity as well as the negativity. Yeah. But I think a lot of viral moments early on came from rival fans sharing that. So do you think the Redmen TV would have grown quicker had you had done that and looked at the AFTV model or not?
Well, again, we were still there interviewing people. And as I say, there just weren't those characters. There weren't those people who were doing the big sort of huge moments in that way. So I can't say that I'm sat on an archive of
the Liverpudlian tie,
troops, Liverpool and tie and all that kind of stuff. They didn't exist. Yeah. And again, they were nowhere near us. So it wasn't quite in that regard. But you know, again, it was. I didn't see it as a business. I saw it as the small role I had that I set for myself was that I wanted people to see the joy of supporting Liverpool. I wanted people to feel it the way that I felt it, and you know, this sounds like we're trying to whitewash over the bad times. It's not the case at all. We were always there, and we always said it. We always say if the performance was rubbish, I'd still be out the ground saying it was rubbish. But yeah, I just, again, the one for me is those moments where you see like someone's going nuts celebrating. There was one from like the City Spurs Champions League game when it gets done in the last minute, is it like on VAR and something, and there's like fans celebrating, and then they're not, and I'm like, I just can't understand why you.
The City's, you're talking about the Sterling's goal for City against Spurs, and then the iconic Pep dropping to his knees because of VAR.
Yeah, and there's kids. I
remember it vividly because that was our year getting to the final. Obviously, ultimately we lost, but
there's kids filming that, and I just thought that just stays on your phone, and that probably gets deleted. But now, again,
I know what you mean by that,
it's a numbers game now, and I get that, and I'm fortunate that we never had to chase the numbers because it became sustainable.
And live in the moment a bit. I know what you mean, because I was at the Ajax, it's still one of the best games I've ever been to, Ajax away, 3-0 down when Lucas Moura scored in the 96th something minute. And my initial reaction isn't, get this on film. It's like, I don't have a picture or video of that, but it's an amazing football memory that my team had scored in the 96th minute from 3-0 down away from home to get to a Champions League final. And I've got special memories of sharing that with my mates and stuff. Now, I don't have that on video, but I'll tell you where you see it a lot when a penalty is given or a free kick, and the amount of, I'm contradicting myself because recently I did film a Spurs free kick
but everyone does it.
The amount of cameras you see behind the goal now, when a penalty is taken, is crazy, isn't it?
The thing is, that's one thing, and I think that gets confused with another sometimes, is that like I really enjoy vlogging football matches. I do, because it's a daft thing, but like mum's been diagnosed with dementia, and I worry about like not remembering the best things as well. Yeah. But also, again, it's historical. I'm privileged to be able to. There's the season ticket waiting list at Anfield has been closed for 20 years. You're not getting a season ticket unless you know someone who knows someone, and you can get in. I was there when we beat Barcelona 4-0. I was there for beating Borussia Dortmund, and 7-0 Manchester United, and I love the fact that I get to can show the world that what it feels like in a celebration. And occasionally my face will crop up into it. Largely, that's so I've got something for the thumbnail. But like, I'm not
really honest. I like it.
Yeah, but ultimately, I can't. I'm just not. I don't sit there filming myself.
Yes, got you.
It's that, and it's the atmosphere and it's the vibe that I enjoy.
Do you see yourself as a trailblazer then? Because you were the first fan channel. You now have fan channels pretty much for every Premier League club. I think I'd be right in saying, whether that's a podcast or a fan channel or someone that vlogs. I mean, do you see yourself as a trailblazer in that space?
It's not really. It's not really a thing you can say about yourself, is it? You know what I mean? I love that industry, and I love that it's become a thing, and I'm proud to have been at the inception of it. Because I genuinely believe that every club should have it, because again, you should be able to showcase your passion for the football team. So no, I don't. No, not really. But
I'll ask it in a different way then. If you're being very modest, you're a genuine guy, but you were the first to do that. Do you think other channels like AFTV and others took inspiration from you and started their channels because of what you were doing?
I don't think Robbie sat down one day and went, there's two Scouse lads sat in a back bedroom somewhere filming themselves. I should now go and stand outside the Emirates interviewing fans. I don't think that happened.
Yeah, he's got a great head of hair. This Paul, have you seen it?
Yeah.
We've got to replicate
things that he can't emulate and he can better me at. That is not something that Robbie can beat me at, unfortunately. But look. There's just a general thing where things come up, things exist in the ether, ideas spread.
Yeah.
And, it became whether people directly saw us or, I wouldn't like to say, but I'd like to hope. I'd like to hope in some way we open the door for other people to do it, because, I remember for years, there's certainly a lot of Liverpool YouTube channels that I know of, watched us and were inspired by what we do to do their own thing. So I can definitely speak to that.
That's amazing, that. And of course, you went through a period where you worked at Ball Street. So tell us about what happened there. Did you sell the channel to Ball Street, or you collaborated? What actually happened there?
So we'd gone from a stage where we were literally in the back room of my house, moving a dining room table out and moving a couch over and pinning a banner up on the wall and recording one evening a week.
I love that. I love stories like that.
Yeah.
It's just, it's real then, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and then my son was born, and then there was like all of a sudden you can hear a crying baby in the background of the videos because he's in the next room, and then we had Dietmar Man come to my house. They get a World Cup finalist, European Cup winner, and but there's the thing is this is cool, but it starts to feel a little like we've got to professionalize a little bit more. We kind of like we'd launched the paywall, and then we gave us a bit of fun, and we moved out, but we reached a level where we moved into a pub on Penny Lane in Liverpool. A friend owned a pub. He let us use a spare room upstairs, and it was great, and that helped us really, really kick on. But then his other partner wasn't so keen on us being there and gave us a bit of a rough deadline to get out. And in that period, we started doing a bit of work with Ball Street. We'd gone down to done a show with Ian Wright and a couple of the other bits. And I was talking to them about doing some directing work with them, what have you. And then it just kind of came about of like, kind of getting them to buy into the whole fan media, fan channel thing. So we convinced them that we needed a studio, and they had money to invest, and they wanted to invest in that space. So a deal was struck whereby they bought Redmen TV.
Right.
Chris and I moved over to work on Redmen, but also on Ball Street stuff as well.
So that was wider football then, Premier League stuff, right?
Because I've been direct, and by this point I've been directing shows and hosting shows for them, and I saw that as the future, where you could put fan media alongside ex-professionals in a YouTube setting and actually legitimise both. And we were doing shows like that, and it was great. And obviously, Gary Neville's gone and done his own spin on it with the overlap now. But this is years ago. This is well ahead of its time.
Ahead of its time.
And so that was for me. That was, as I say, Redmen was going to be that would fund Redmen. I could step away into this next upper role, move on with my career or whatever. And then it just, never quite worked out.
Why do you think it didn't?
I think there's a saying, like the captain of a ship needs to know how every role of every person on that ship. He needs to know how to do every job. Doesn't need to be an expert at it, but he needs to fundamentally understand how his ship works. And I think that there were people in charge there who didn't know how to operate cameras, and they didn't come from production backgrounds, and I think they liked the idea. But if the shit had hit the fan and everyone left the building, the YouTube channel wouldn't have run because they didn't know how to do that. So then you were left with, I think they were chasing different ideals and different dreams, and then the money had come in, and we were so far removed from that we became a little bit forgotten, and then that drove a bit of a wedge where that spurred me on to kind of go, well, again, a bit like back to the LFC TV days. Well, if you're not going to back us, then I'm going to do it myself.
Right.
Which meant I took quite a combative stance towards that, really. And it's quite funny because I know James Alcott's been on here. James Alcott's a very, very good friend of mine. Yeah. But the reality is I'd been hosting Ball Street content, and then they got a new sponsorship in, they got a new show, and they hired James in to present it. And I remember thinking, so why have we done this?
Oh, really?
Yeah, because again, I'd been so central to everything that we'd done as a company up to that point.
Why did you think that then?
Well, ultimately, that was the first time where I'd not been consulted. I'd come in to do this, and all of a sudden, I wasn't being consulted on the content that Ball Street was getting made, and they had a new presenter, and I was like, well, hang on, I thought that was my job.
Yeah.
And as it said, look, James has gone on, and James is brilliant, and I marvel at the success that James has had. Brilliant footballer as well, by the way.
He's a tidy footballer, isn't he?
He's very, very good. So yeah, but that was another one of those things that this wasn't James's doing. Yeah. But that was a one where you feel like you're being pushed to the periphery stuff. So instead of me moving up with my career, I'm back doing the thing that I was doing with no support and feeling like you're being maligned. And it came a lot of like, well, actually, you don't really know how to be successful because you got lucky because it was Liverpool. If it had been another football club, it wouldn't have worked. And that would be true. But it didn't mean that I didn't. It was like, someone trying to undercut the achievements that you made. So it led to quite a toxic environment, really.
So did you have to buy the channel back then? How did that process work? And was that a stressful process?
That was the single most stressful experience in my life.
Was it?
Yeah, 100%.
Why?
And bear in mind, like I was in the birthing suite when my daughter was born, and I had to press the emergency button to have like nurses rush in to get it out and breathing.
Sorry,
and stuff.
And this was buying your channel back from Ball Street was more stressful than pressing the emergency button when your child was born.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it was such a long, drawn out process that we went and said, we think this company's on the way down. We're not being given the support. We've not been given a budget. You know, it's not the thing we bought into. A lot of it's changed. They've gone and spent money on other channels and other projects, and we were just kind of sitting back going, well, right, I think it's time to split. Can we buy it? Can we leave? No, you can't leave, and you certainly can't have it back because it's tied up in a wider company and finance and investment and stuff. Okay, fair. What do you want for it? And a figure, I think the initial figure that was quoted was £750,000, which I don't need to tell you, I did not have.
No. Who does?
And still don't, by the way.
Yeah.
Not many people do.
No, there's that, yeah.
And so we were, oh wow, okay, well, look, we're all humans. I'm a big fan in mediating in conversation and being able to find a route through any problem. You can talk.
How can we resolve this?
100%.
Yeah.
So we kind of put it to one side, and then they made us a counter offer to stay around for longer while they were looking to again raise investments, and I think maybe even sell the whole company. And just one of those things, about that thing of control. I just wanted to be the master of my own destiny with this stuff, and my head had gone completely with it. And then eventually, again, this is probably a bit further down the line, I think we got them down to, we got them down, we said, well, look, we need this to happen, we're done, nothing's happening here, you're going to take our company down with yours. I think they wanted, then that was 250,000, which again was still wildly out. And then eventually we had to quit. We handed our notice in because we were contracted. We'd been there for so long. We had to sit a 6-month notice period out working on the channel like everything's fine. The audience couldn't know that we were. And that was halfway through that notice period. Coronavirus hit. Everything shuts down. And we agreed to stay until football came back.
Right.
Just to kind of help with transition or whatever, all the while saying any movements, is there any way we can sort something out? Nothing happening. To the point where I literally, on a day, I was sat in the living room in my house, and again, everyone's working from home. So I had one of the computers, I had a laptop, I had the phone, and I was emptying out my computer, every bit of footage that I'd filmed, every login, I was clearing all this stuff off. And I had a panic attack. I couldn't breathe. I was like, because I couldn't believe that it was happening. Like, I got into this situation. How the hell am I walking away from this thing that I've created? And says, I can't believe that they wouldn't just make, you know what I mean? Like, why would they want this to happen? And God, it was absolutely horrendous. And I took my stuff in. We went and met with one of the owners at our studios. We still had the staff who were kind of, the idea was they were going to keep running it until they figured out what was going on with it. And I handed me stuff out, and I had to clear my office out. I was like, I can't. I started, and there was just I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to have to come back another time. Handed me keys over, and absolutely broke down in floods of tears, And then I eventually said, again, I can't deal with it. I walked out, and I was like, that's it. I'm unemployed. I've lost the channel. And this was like on the eve of, we played Everton first game back. It was just like, this is like 2 days or 3 days before the football resumed. And I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do.
No plans at that stage.
Well, me and Chris had our own YouTube channel, which we'd set up in sort of half anticipation of just having something to sort of
fall back on. We
had we owned another company that does merchandise and what have you, but nothing was like, wasn't Redmen. It wasn't, that thing. And then the next day, we just got a phone call, and they said, "Okay, well, how does this deal work for you?" And finally, we hit upon something that did work. So, we spent the next year basically paying to buy it back, and we did. And God, that was that was.
I can sense just how stressful that was, just how you relayed that. So you were days away from losing. It was gone. Redmen TV.
We were out. We had no contract with them anymore. I'd taken back my logins for certain accounts, and they were gone. And one of the lads, the production lads, was like, "Okay, well, I'm just gonna have to crack on with this." And we were sat in Chris's garden. Wow. They just kind of like commiserating and drinking with the family and the kids around, both in absolute shell shock.
Really?
And then the phone rang, and then again we turned it around since then. So that was, we were on the path to buying it back. Liverpool lift the league title.
Of course, in COVID, yeah, of course they did.
Yeah, that was it, you know, and then we
Did that feel like the stars of the line then? I mean, was that one of the most important phone calls you've ever had in your life, do you think?
100%. Because that's, honestly, you know, I'm sure we'd have figured something out.
Yeah.
But, you know, we were having conversations with people and going, we're going to be leaving here, is there anything doing? And it just wasn't, you know, there was no job that was going to replace.
And then that year, Liverpool win their first Premier League title. It's almost like it's meant to be, and I'm guessing the content that you had from that, it was just like, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that was meant to be.
Yeah, that was it. And then typically the first full season of us then owning, after that, Liverpool were awful. Awful. We had loads of injuries. They scraped into the top four on like
Robbie
the last
Linder's
game of the season.
Views, yeah.
And I was going, oh my God, what have we bought? But yeah, no.
That is, you just summed up football there. That's the one thing you cannot control is the outcome. Give us insight into, it's an amazing story that, into how big Redmen TV is now. How big is your empire, so to speak? Because I know it's not just you. How many people work on the channel?
So there's 10 of us
full-time,
and then there's a handful of part-timers. And
what would they be doing? What jobs would they be? If they were asking, videographers, script writers, what?
This is production. We've got a couple of producers, social media. Chloe Bloxham is a star in her own right, who does presenting for us and goes to the away games and stuff. We've got Steve Hoare, who's our head of operations, Dan Klopp's head of social media, and Chris Pajak. And then we've got a bunch of other people in around. My wife's now in the business doing the account, so I was able to get her out of teaching, which was absolutely killing her off. Amazing. So yeah, it's the family. It's officially the family business.
Well, I love that. I love hearing that. So give us an insight into a typical week. Let's. I know every week's different. Let's presume there's a week where you're playing in Europe and you're playing on a Sunday. Because what's amazing about this is I obviously do my research. I watch a lot of your YouTube content, but I was like, oh, they've got a website as well. And there was articles that said written by Paul Machin. Then you've got the merchandise angle. You've got the YouTube videos that I've seen you upload and direct. I've seen you present. So give me a typical week, presuming Liverpool have got 2 games, in terms of what you do.
Well, it's ultimately a lot of it, the structure of the week. If Liverpool are away in Europe, then it's, get on a plane, fly over, go and cover the game. And, particularly when you're doing the vlogs, that's something that goes on my channel. So that's, there's no one, that's me. That channel is effectively run from my phone. Yeah. So, and I remember saying this to someone the other day who went away to cover one for Redmen in Europe. And I said, like, Champions League final when Liverpool won in 2019, me and my dad went to watch that. Amazing moment. Great to be there. Great to experience it. But I was editing until 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I think I got a couple of hours sleep, and we got up and we were on. We had to go to fly back. The next morning. But that was so that. So
is that because you have to get it out then?
Yeah. Because I
wouldn't have been watching it because that was the Spurs game. I'm devastated still. So let's brush over that.
Wasn't for, that
never a penalty. Never a penalty.
Not for Spurs fans.
No.
But
dislike.
But that's I know. Yeah. But
I wouldn't dream of it.
But it's that. So it's. There's no point in leaving that 12 hours because it's dead. Yeah. Or the grand chunk of stuff you're going to get. You win those big European games.
You have to get it out.
Because you go home anyway. If you've ever had one of those big night wins, you go home and you're scrolling Twitter, just trying to consume as much content that's going out around as possible. And we're part of that, and I love being a part of that. So it's that vlog is paramount. That's you get out the ground. I'll do a match reaction video for Redmen. 100%. Yeah, do a reaction video for Redmen, which will get uploaded. Then it's on to getting the vlog. I was walking. We played Villarreal in the semi-finals a couple of years ago, and me and Steve, we walked an hour back to our hotel, and it was like, again, headphone in, down here, and he's effectively, as long as I can just keep him in my peripheral, I know I'm not going to get run over while I'm editing.
So you're actually editing while you're walking back to the hotel?
A river had burst its banks, which we didn't know, and we ended up in like ankle deep water.
Just what you need.
So I just walked through, and I'm like, oh Christ, well, I can't stop now. I've got to carry on editing. So if that's what that looks like, whether it's home or away, it's there. It's whenever they're done, and they go out. Let's say we're then away, or if we were at home, it'll be at Anfield at the weekend and similar sort of thing. If it's an away game, I'll cover it from the studio and go and do the watch along, and that's the game. So then you've got all doing live stuff, doing the commentary on that, and doing the post-match content. And then in the week, because we've got the website, which is effectively our pseudo Netflix type subscription streaming service. the shows throughout the week on
And that
there.
because people have the option to pay for the exclusive content, right?
Yes, yeah. So I mean, the funny thing about that is that everyone does that now. So like, obviously, everyone's got a Patreon or everyone's got their own thing. But that didn't exist when we started that.
Yeah.
We famously or infamously robbed our terms and conditions from lovefilm.com because Netflix didn't even stream when we started.
Really?
Netflix, as you know it now, was still posting DVDs out at the time, and so was Love Film, and it was the closest thing to what we did. So we built this website, paid to build this website, and that's been going since 2011 that started. So it's that's got its own strands. It's got documentaries, so we're always working on. There's just a million things. Honestly, the million plate spinning. You've got your post match stuff. Then you've got your build up to your next match stuff. And if it's twice a week, then you double down on that. Then we've now got people going off and interviewing people, and again preparing documentaries. And then you do an advert to advertise the merchandise and that kind of stuff. So. Yeah,
full on. Yeah, to take a breath after you've. It sounds like you've lived the whole week there. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the big people you've had on your channel. One of the first, I'm right in thinking. Now, you described this interview to me as a car crash, and it was a huge name that you had very early on your channel. Can you reveal all?
Yeah, Luis Suarez. Wow, that was a steep learning curve in interview
Why?
technique. Well, because he'd not long signed for Liverpool. He'd signed in the January, and I think this was maybe the next international break. It might have been the March. And I was still working part-time at this point. So first and foremost...
Oh, was that early on?
Yeah. So I'd had an email from a friend who ran a Liverpool website. They'd been offered a chance to interview him through Adidas.
Yeah.
And he said, well, he was based in Malta. And he's like, well, I know you're around. Would you like the opportunity? I said, absolutely. So really last minute, got this sorted.
And at the time, he must have been one of the biggest players for Liverpool. I mean, you're talking about what... In terms of everyone you could have interviewed, he'd be right up there, right?
I mean, this is again, he's the brand new signing.
Correct, yeah.
He's he's obviously brilliant as well. We didn't know quite how good he was going to be, of course, but he. So anyway, I turned up to Liverpool's training ground, Melwood at the time, with a digital SLR camera. And I think it would have had a mic on top, and I had a notepad from work, from the restaurant, which you write your orders on and you rip them off.
Oh, yeah.
I had the questions written out on one of these flicky note check pads.
Yeah.
And I sat down in a room, and it's me and Suarez opposite, and it's Per Guardiola, who's Pep's brother, who's his agent, who sat there. There's a translator, and then there's the Adidas rep. And I'm going through the questions, and I'm like, again, Soccer AM in front. I'm like, I do not want to go through these. Is it good being in Liverpool?
Yeah.
Do you like football?
Something a bit different you're trying to get out of him.
God, those dry questions. Like, this is my chance to do something different. Important lesson, kids. Don't start with those questions ever. Never start with the fun questions. Ease them in.
Ease them into it. I totally agree.
Ease them in. Yeah. So I started with God, who's the hardest of Liverpool centre halves? Skrtel and Kyriakos, and who? And of course, he understood a lot of English, but he couldn't speak. So he was speaking through the translator. So that one bombed.
Because is that the pause? You're asking light-hearted questions. You've then got to be paused to translate the question. Then he answers. Pause to translate the answer. Then you go, ha, ha, ha. Then he translate that. It's just awkward, right?
And ultimately, you're asking him in a very scouse question of who'd win in a fight, Martin Skrtel or Sotiris Kyriakos.
Translate 3 times and then back.
God, Lord. And then there was another one. And bear in mind, I'm holding the camera here. Pointed at him, and it's one because DSLR it's not autofocus. So if he moves out of focus, you've got to sort that. Yeah. And then got me questions here, and so I'm trying to look at him to interview him, and also make sure he's still in shot. Jeez. And then these questions are falling so flat, it's ridiculous. So he's giving me answers like, oh yeah, well I don't really know, and I'm like, oh God, this is death. This is death. And I managed, I took it back, right, I'll save it, I skipped back, I went, here's some of my sensible ones, gave him 1 or 2 sensible ones, got a couple of nice answers out of him, and then went back to the funny ones. But one of the best ones, the biggest moment that I remember was, because he was famous for nutmegging people in all kinds of ways. Luis Suarez can nutmeg a mermaid, was the saying. And I said, who's the best player you've ever nutmegged? In fact, I probably said megged, because I'm an idiot. And
had to get that retranslated.
So I went, no, sorry, nutmegged. And the girl, the translator, goes, and she translates nutmeg literally, as in, the spice. Which, so he's going like, what? Like, you know, like it's like who's the best player you've ever seen? You know, like sprinkled salt and pepper on effectively.
Garlic on it,
yeah, exactly. Like, and he'd go, what? And I'm going. And he's like, huh? And I'm going, and I'm trying to, I'm holding a camera, I've got a check pad, and I'm sat at a table, and I'm trying to demonstrate, like the actor, you know, I kick it, and then Per Guardiola's going, and he's giving it like in Spanish, trying to do this, and I go, no, like, kick it between the legs, and the girl, he obviously isn't a football fan, is going like, what are you talking about? And eventually, I went, you did it to Raphael the other week, and he went, oh, Raphael. yeah. I was all right.
We'll go with Raphael.
Yeah. Cool. We'll leave it there. But that was like I watched my entire career flash before my eyes there.
It didn't help that you asked him about a spice, or so they thought, on a restaurant notepad. That did probably make more sense.
Didn't translate to Uruguayan Spanish. Who knew?
Oh, what a story. I want to ask you about Klopp as well, because you had quite an amazing relationship with him. Am I right in thinking you had a pretty amazing moment where he said something about your content to you off camera?
So Jurgen Klopp got the Liverpool job, and obviously we were made up. You know, like, wow, what a guy! And you know, I always wanted to get a bit closer to him. I just thought he's just the kind of guy who might vibe with what we're doing, and you might find it quite fun. But you know, how'd you have that conversation? Who'd you reach out to? I had no idea. We were allowed to cover the Liverpool Player Awards in 17, 18, I think it might have been. And we're on the red carpet behind the sort of rope, and obviously as people go down the carpet, you're trying to grab people for interviews, and I got a couple, and I grabbed Gini Wijnaldum. It was right by the door, right by the entrance, and I'd known Gini, I'd done some work with him earlier in the year, beat him at Pro Evo. That's more
nice.
Important. But so we were just having a chat. He knew who I was, so it was cool. And as I was doing, Jurgen walked past, and I sort of clocked him and did a hi, and he kind of clocked me back. And I honestly, it's mad because I was like, oh, Genie, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I've missed Klopp because I've interviewed Genie Wijnaldum, which is bad because, again, Genie's great. I've missed my chance. It's the closest I'm going to get to Jurgen Klopp. So I carry on the interview, put it in the back of my mind, and then about, I don't know, could be 10 seconds, 20 seconds later, he pops his head back out the door and just goes, I watch you. And I was like, and I literally go, no, Jurgen. And I'm like, because like it's Genie, and I don't want to, and Genie's laughing his head off, and I'm like,
let me have this moment.
Come, can I get you to come here? And then
can you say it to camera?
Yeah, honestly, but like it's there, it's on camera. But like I'm like, I want to grab him. Can I get you? And he goes something on the lines of, God, this is great. Enjoy it. Like, you know, this is the time. This is the time to support Liverpool and all that kind of stuff. And he walked off, and obviously then I had to continue my interview with Gini Wijnaldum with my head in absolute pieces off the back of that. I've no idea what I asked Gini after that. Like that,
you don't remember that at all?
Somehow managed to like tie the interview up nicely and wrap it up in a friendly sort of way. And I think he said something about, oh, well, you must be doing something all right because the manager watches it. And so the next day, there's a guy called Tony Barrett, who's the press officer now, but he was like a fan liaison role at Liverpool before that. And I'd known him from his time at the Times. And I texted him and said, Tony, Jurgen's just told me that he watches us. And he was like, and he messaged back and went, oh yeah, watches you all the time. I'm like, Tony,
tell me that.
Somebody have told me this fact beforehand? And so I said, any chance I could interview him? And then it came to the summer, pre-season. We were over in Michigan, and I finally got the chance to sit down and interview him. And then we had a few interactions over the years.
Amazing. That's incredible. So from an early point, he was a fan of Redmen TV, or Jurgen Klopp used to consume Redmen TV content.
He said, I care what people who care think. And because I asked him why do you watch it? Why did you say that to me? And he said that, he said there's loads of press, there's loads of journalists, and they judge it because it's their job to judge it. If people are passionate and they just love it and they love the enjoyment of it, I want to know that, almost like I want to know that you guys are enjoying what I'm producing for you. Yeah. So he liked that. So he wasn't sitting and watching us do the Dower podcast, but again, the blogs. Got you. So again, the Champions League final, we saw them the year after we won the Champions League.
Yeah, still going on
against Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thanks to a clear-cut penalty.
Never a penalty. We'll move
on. He'd watched the vlog of me and my dad, and
that's awesome.
So he sat down, he went, and he did an impression of my dad, because
did he?
Yeah, we'd been at the fan park, and it was like 70,000 Liverpool fans, and I'd gone to my dad along the lines of like, what do you think of that? And he went, yeah, it was all right. And he did that as like an impression of my dad. I was like,
that's quality,
man.
I've obviously been lucky enough to meet. Do you know what's funny? Actually, I actually got asked on Jack Mate's podcast of building nicest people I've met, but also asking about the best interview I've done, which is I'm so lucky in my role at Sky that I get to interview players weekly, daily. I mean, I've interviewed most Premier League footballers, which is amazing, and managers. But I always go back to my Jurgen Klopp interviews being one of my favourites because we did a feature where I asked him the most searched questions about himself on the internet, and I had about a 25-minute piece of access. And he was talking about the fact that he doesn't play Fortnite, that he loves the thumbs up emoji. He talks about Forrest Gump. And we had a message from the Liverpool press officer saying, I've been with Jurgen Klopp for 5 years and that's one of the best bits of content I've ever seen him do. And why I always go back to that interview is because I think it was the first... Nowadays, people utilise their access with players and managers to do things that are a bit different, to do light-hearted things, to do quizzes. Back then, no one sort of did that. And I think it was one of the first times we saw a bit of content that was a bit different. And we happened to do it with Jurgen Klopp and Mauricio Pochettino as the first two people that did this strand. And the final of the Champions League, to go back to it, was Tottenham and Liverpool. So we were just so lucky in terms of how that went. But both individuals, I can't speak highly enough of both of them as managers, by the way, and Poch is someone else I've got amazing fondness of. But I just thought Klopp was just amazing to be. He had this real aura about him, and he was genuinely interested in sort of me and the camera crew and everything. What were your experiences of Jurgen as a person?
So the best one was we were at the Managers Awards. I got invited. I'd done some work with the sponsor, so I asked to go. Me and my wife went. It was like free dinner,
VIP, red carpet.
100%.
Yeah.
But we were in the bar beforehand, and Liverpool's press officer walks in. A guy called Matt McCann.
Matt McCann, yeah. No more.
And he looks around,
nice guy.
And then he sees me and goes, oh. And that's not normally his reaction when he sees me.
Yeah.
His reaction was normally, oh God.
Yeah.
But it was a sense of relief, and then he basically comes over and goes, right, the gaffer's here. I'm going to leave him with you because I'm glad you're here because there's someone I can leave him with.
And Matt's got a very close relationship with Jurgen, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay. So my missus was like, oh, fine, cool. Yeah, go bring him in. And a couple of minutes later, Jurgen comes in. He walks over and he's got his like jacket on. He's got gleaming white trainees and teeth and all that kind of stuff. And he just comes over and stands with us. And I was like, oh, can I get you a drink? And he said, well, no, but yeah, if you want to. I was like, yeah. So I've got him.
This is you having a beer with Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah.
Love it. Me
and my wife having a beer with Jurgen, and he was telling us about how, again, this is post winning the European Cup, and he just randomly said my wife was away at the weekend, and I was just sat at home on the couch with the telly on, and I flicked over, and there was the Champions League final replay.
Yeah.
He said I sat and watched the whole game.
Did he?
By the end, crying like a baby in the house on my own. I was like, oh, go on, Jurgen. Like, yeah. And it was mad. That was just, and then it was one of those stupid moments where Pep walked in and he went over and had a chat with him, and that was kind of the end of our like.
Sorry. So you were having a beer with Jurgen Klopp, and you got bombed off because Pep Guardiola walked in. Yeah. And Jurgen went, "I love you, Paul, but Pep's in the room." I get that.
It'd be a bit rude if I blanked Pep.
Imagine it was the other way around.
Yeah, 100%.
Sorry, Pep. Mate's here.
I let him off. But I think he gave my wife a kiss on the cheek and vice versa, like a greeting kind of thing, and. This is at the end of the night, so he was leaving. He'd won the Manager of the Year award. Yeah. And as he was leaving, we stood up, we walked past us and went, oh, see you later, congratulations. Yeah. And he went, thanks. And she gave him a kiss, and he said, I won the Manager of the Year, but I think the kiss was probably the highlight of my night. And
Did you say that?
But it's like, it sounds like people like, oh God. Honestly, it's just one of those stupid things where it was just a lovely, stupid, nice moment for him to say. So, like, Charlie walked out on cloud nine that night. Of like, oh,
with you.
Thankfully, I mean, to be fair, if he'd asked, it's, but like, I'm sure she'd have been made up. But let's
move on.
No. But she, again, it was just one of those, that's his personality. Stupid, pleasant human moments that he has, is that, he never takes life too seriously. And he'll have fun in any gives us. God, I love him. I just think.
Yeah. What is Jurgen Klopp like on a night out then?
I bet he's. I mean, we've seen videos. I mean,
but you've had a beer with him. You can give us a little bit of an insight. What is he like with a drink in his hand on a night out?
He is. I just think he's the same. He's probably the same, but more.
Yeah.
So I would imagine. I mean, God, the last time I did interview him was basically he was leaving the club. It was like a week or two before he actually finally said goodbye and left Liverpool, and he had no filter then. So I imagine Jurgen after a skinful is probably quite free quite free talking. I'd be fascinated to see that.
I love that story. So good. I wanted to ask you about your last interview then, because you got quite a bit of heat on social media about that. Can you explain what happened, if you don't mind talking about it?
Yeah, that is in one of those, I touched upon it earlier, that you make decisions, you set a plan for how you're going to be, do what you do, make your content, how you're going to exist as a business, and you make decisions. And that was the example of one that we ultimately got wildly wrong. It was the third time we'd had a sit-down interview with Jurgen since he'd been the manager. And every previous time, what we'd done is we'd had a short run, maybe 15 to 20 minutes at most. And then we put that all behind our paywall for our subscribers on Redmen Plus, and then we'd put a chunk of it out on YouTube, like a nice, a nice, good, solid, interesting part of it we put out on there, and that meant that we get good views on YouTube. It'd be cool, and ultimately, the numbers would be good, which would drive the ad revenue. And then you could say, well, if you want to watch the full thing, if you like what we've done, come and check it out over here, because in reality, the website funds our entire operation. We wouldn't exist if that thing didn't exist. So that's our business model. That's not just Jurgen, that's all things, documentaries and all the big stuff we've done over the years. That's how we chose to do it, and that's how it is. This one, we made a piece of content which is similar to what you did, this Jurgen blind ranking his best moments, and we knew that was going on YouTube, and then we had the interview. So the blind rankings one was coming out, but we put the thing out on the paywall, because again, it's like, well, this is Jurgen's going. It's almost like, in our eyes, it's his farewell gift to us. This is the one last hurrah. This will get us through the summer and beyond, and whatever. Because we'd had a bad time the year before financially. After Liverpool had a bad season, it nearly cleaned us out. And because we hadn't sort of communicated exactly how everything was going to go, a group of people went, "Why are you putting that behind the paywall?" It's this. It was a real negativity around that ultimately, and I think because of the magnitude of importance to people,
Jurgen leaving,
it was the wrong decision to do that. But it's one of those things where people don't care for the other side of it. And again, we then put that blind rankings video, which I think is a much funnier, more YouTube, more entertaining video, and that absolutely bombed because it was just loads of people piling negativity on and dislikes and causing all kinds of things. People then someone signed up for the website and ripped the full video and then released it for free on Twitter. And again, it's those things. It sounds daft. We had a bit of a thing. We lived in it for 24 hours. It was horrendous. And I often find that you get negativity online. You get people I don't look at my mentions on Twitter ever. Haven't done for a couple of years now, because it's just not worth the gamble of have someone ruining your day. You're with your kids. You have a good time.
I know what you mean by that.
Just check your notifications. Check your mentions. Someone says something horrible, they ruined. And they don't understand that. But I find that whenever it filters out into the real world, if it makes it into your WhatsApps, that's when you need to address things often. And this was one of those kind of situations where I had loads of people reaching out and going, "Are you all right?" Randomly, we would. I
remember messaging you at the time.
Absolutely, and random stuff, and a nice opportunity to name drop. But we were then filming some of the other coaches that were leaving as well. So we were at the training centre like the day later, and Van Dijk was there, and he went, "Oh, seeing you, you're getting some heat on Twitter." And
Virgil van Dijk said that to you.
I was like, "All right, Virg, thanks, mate." And he went, "You're putting it out?" And I was like, "Yeah, we are putting it out, mate."
Did he say that? Did he? Wow. I mean, obviously, on the one hand, you're thinking, I'm getting so much negativity, that's not great. On the other hand, Virgil van Dijk is seeing my content. That's a good thing, isn't it?
I mean, I'd rather him see that everyone was made up with us and think what a good thing it was. But it was. But it must
have been a weird sort of
But it's another thing where if someone like that is aware of it, then it's gone so big that you need to step in and make a decision. And we made the decision to put it out for free, and it was the right decision ultimately. In a wonderful twist of irony, 2 days later, the boiler in the studio broke, and that was like, I don't know what we paid that, $2,000 or something to get a brand new boiler fitted in the studio, something stupid like that. And it's one of those things where you go, there's the reality of it, and there's a little party that goes, I might just put a picture of this broken boiler sat on the front step outside the building, because that still has to get paid. The wages still have to get paid. And again, it's one of those things where, it was the circumstances. It wasn't the right situation and whatever to do that. but it is some point down the line things are going to happen, and that's the business. That's what pays the staff. That's what again keeps a roof over our heads. But it made what was already quite a difficult time infinitely more difficult and stressful than it really should have been, because we made that decision. It was the right decision for the wider audience and world. But there's how many thousands of people who were signed up to our subscription service going, and they were perfectly in the rights to go.
Tough one.
Hang about. We're here come rain or shine. We've supported your business. The tens of thousands of people who were out on well, it was not like it was tens of thousands. It was a select number of people online, and not the people who would care that we survive or not. They just want the interview. They don't care that it's us that have done it,
Yeah, no, tough. I think you handled that very well. Tough situation, but fascinating to hear about Van Dijk as well. It brings me nicely on. I just thought I'd round it up by having a bit of a Liverpool chat. Nicest person you've had on your channel, so a Liverpool player or gaffer, who would you say has been the nicest person to have or to meet?
You know what? We're dead lucky with so many of the players and stuff. You say don't meet your idols and whatever, but so many of them are so sound. But immediately the one that came back to me was Gini Wijnaldum. Funnily enough, again we played a game with him at Pro Evo. He was at a launch event for that, and we stayed a bit after the fact, and we ended up walking back to his car with him. I just ran randomly around the streets of Anfield chatting with Gini Wijnaldum, and actually it was because of that, he was just so warm and just so chill and so nice. That was so often, you walk into a room and you get 5
I know what you mean, 5 minutes, and then your interaction's over. Yeah.
The second it finishes, you don't get to laugh about the content you've made.
I know what you mean.
Rush it out of the room. So that was a great example of actually we just got to be with him, the human being, for another sort of 10, 15 minutes.
I like that.
Actually, yeah, nice.
Nicest fan interaction or strangest moment where you've thought, oh,
God, you know what?
Because you must get mobbed a bit when you go to Anfield.
Not at Anfield. People come up and say hello,
like
but
the channel
actually when we do the pre-season tour, so if you go to America, that's more like that.
Okay.
I remember coming out of Fenway Park years ago now, and just being people. I was just filming a video outside, and all of a sudden, can I get a photo? Can I get a photo? Can I get a photo? There was a guy who was a Massachusetts state trooper who gave me this Massachusetts patch. It was like a really good. Have this. I was like, oh, cool. Like, go ahead. It was like obviously I had a symbol of honor or whatever. Like, I was like, oh, this is cool. But the weirdest one was walking towards Euston Station, and this guy in a red van just shouted, "Red man, red van," and drove off.
Did he?
Thanks, mate.
Love that.
Big smile on his face.
Did you reply, or did you not have time to reply?
Thanks. As he drove up, pumping.
Oh, what a guy! I love that. Thoughts on Arne Slot? Let's have a little chat about Liverpool this season, because I feel like there was a perception outside of Liverpool that obviously Klopp is impossible shoes to walk into. Didn't recruit much in the summer. I know you brought in Chiesa, but in terms of what other clubs were doing, that some people thought Liverpool may struggle. I mean, he's done pretty well, isn't he? Pretty amazing, really, what he's done.
He has. You know what I like about him? He's not there like he's won a competition or he's out to prove something. He's not desperate for attention. He's not desperate for approval. And look, Liverpool have had managers who've been too far the other way. Example, Roy Hodgson cared not what anyone thought of him, but that was actually, he probably could have listened more to what people wanted and adapted. Brendan Rodgers was so desperate to be loved, and he was so desperate for people to understand him and what he was trying to do, that it felt we went too far in the opposite direction. Slot has come in to the point. I had this great relationship with Jurgen Klopp. I bookended my summer by being hugged by Jurgen Klopp, and then having Arne Slot walk past me outside a mix zone, not knowing who I was within the space of 3 months. And you're like, well, there's work to be done there. But I'd reached out.
Klopp kissed my wife. He's not even.
Well, no, 100%,
in a friendly way. In a friendly way, yeah.
But I'd asked, would he be interested in an interview, and basically got told he's not looking to do that type of stuff, and he's just set a bar. He's just come in and said, well, Liverpool Football Club, they belong to be here at this at the top of the table, top of the tree. You players there, but if you think you're good enough to do that, then come into training and show me that. Fans, you claim to be the best fans in the world and make these great atmospheres. Cool, I'm going to win football matches. It's now on you to support the team in the stands. And Yeah, it's been
brilliant.
Particularly that early chunk of the season.
Yeah.
When Liverpool went to the top of the league, I was just like, that was beyond my wildest.
Yeah. Finally, I just wanted to ask where you think Redmen TV will be in the sort of future 5-10 years. What's the goal? It's been because it's been fascinating hearing your journey. Actually, I've got to say, and I think you've been so honest with the highs and the lows. So, where is the goal, and what have you got planned?
So my mission really now is to make it self-sustaining for the long haul. Really, I enjoy it. I still enjoy going to the games. I still enjoy the vlogging. I still enjoy speaking about Liverpool. Going into a room and chatting about the Reds with my mates is it's just I'd be doing that anyway. But I want to. Yeah, I want to see what else there is. I want Redmen to be able to exist without can it exist without Paul Machin and Chris Pajak? I think is the
Can it?
I hope so. I'd like to think it's become enough of an institution that if we, we've got great people there already. We've got Steve and Chloe and Dan who do a brilliant job. It's not like we would really truly go forever from it, of course.
Yeah.
But they do stuff for the first time in the longest time. That things happen without me being in the conversation. I'll walk in and things will have progressed.
Which you like.
And that is amazing. Because there was a time when it was me in one room doing 20-hour days, looking at my own face on a computer screen with my own ears, and my voice in my own ears, thinking, God, I can't, like is this all it's going to be? And like again, Redmen will have produced a clutch of videos while we're doing this, and that's.
I think your work rate's to be applauded as well. Actually, when you actually break down all that you've achieved, but also the journey that you've been on, and I think you've been really honest in this about the tough times. I think it is to be applauded. And as I say, you came down from Liverpool for this. We know each other fairly well through Saturday Social and Sky shows. So genuinely, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a brilliant conversation. What advice would you have for people that might be thinking of starting a channel, or what have you taken from your journey that you could give as advice to other people that might be watching this?
I think you just got to work. You've just got to stick it out. There'll be challenges and there'll be moments where you just think, I can't be bothered. And actually that'll be the week where that could have been the video that made you go. Or that could have been the video that changed your life. And you just couldn't be bothered because you were hungover, or, you decided to go and do that. And it's not an easy road. I've missed holidays and I've missed birthdays and I've missed all kinds of bits and pieces over the years because that was the focus. And for me, that was the difference. Lots of people tried it and lots of people have got on to do other things, and if it's your passion, then it's not a job. And that's where I've been very lucky in that. So if you're doing it because you want to be famous, then you'll probably struggle. But if you're doing it because you love what you do, then it doesn't really matter if it's successful or not. And I actually just genuinely believe if you enjoy the content you make, other people will.
I really like that. I think if it's not a job, if it's your passion, I think that's a really powerful note to end it. Paul, thank you so much. You've got a train to catch. I'll let you go. All the best for the rest of the season, apart from when, of course, you play Spurs. Big love to you. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Cheers, mate.